grandfather, actually I'll start over. My Young Life story goes all the way back to 1942. Some of you, maybe your Young Life story began about 20 minutes ago when you showed up at the house. But it's a really cool story. My grandparents were dating at the time. My grandfather was a young Army doctor, 1942. My grandmother was a sophomore in college. And my grandfather at the time was kind of just a good old boy. Like, went to church sometimes, but didn't really have any kind of relationship with God. And, you know, it's kind of just a cultural reality for him. So on a Monday, they've been dating for a pretty good long time. And on a Monday, my grandmother called and said, "Hey, there's this guy coming up from Dallas this weekend. And he wants to talk about starting this ministry to teenagers. And he's going to go. We're doing this camping trip, and we'd love for you to come." Scared him off. So he agreed to go on the camping trip that following Friday night. Well, 4 or 5 days go by, and he calls her on Friday morning, and he says, my grandfather's name was Chubby. Seriously. And my grandmother's name was Margie. So he calls her up and he says, "Hey Marge, this is Chubby, and I'm not going to be able to go on that camping thing tonight. The boys called me. We're going to go over to Hot Springs and play golf for the weekend. Sorry about that." And the famous line in our family is that she said, "Well, that's fine, but if you do that, don't ever call me again." So needless to say, he went camping that night. Well, the guy who they were talking about coming up from Texas was a guy named Jim Rayburn. And if you know much about Young Life, you know that Jim Rayburn is the founder of Young Life. At the time, Young Life was only in like 4 places, and they were all around the Dallas area. So they had this weekend camp, and they ended up spending a lot of time together, my grandfather and this guy, Jim Rayburn. And the Saturday evening, they get to talking around the campfire, and my grandfather was a pretty curious guy, so he's just asking questions. And after a while, Jim says, "You know, Chubby, just from talking to you, I can tell that you really don't have any personal relationship with Jesus. You seem like a good enough guy, but I'm telling you, if you don't decide to give your life over to Him and follow Him, and really sacrifice your life to His, you'll never experience the abundant life, the good life that God has planned for you. And that would be a tragedy of epic proportions." And so my grandfather, on the spot, gave his life to Jesus. They became good friends, and 6 months later, he and my grandmother were married, and he was in Chicago as an Army doc pulling shrapnel out of guys, and he was learning how to read the Bible. So he called Jim up, and he said, "Hey man, I'm up in Chicago, and I'm struggling with how to learn the Bible." He's like, "Give me some pointers." And so Jim just said, "Well, sure, I'll fly to Chicago." So he flies to Chicago, and back then you could have a friend come in the surgery room with you. So Jim scrubbed in, and while my grandfather pulled shrapnel out of guys, Jim taught him how to read the Bible. And struck up a lifelong friendship. They then went, my grandfather was a camp doctor the first week that Frontier Ranch ever had camp. And by the time he died, he had such an impact on people that even as an 82-year-old, 1,700 people showed up to his funeral.
Holy cow.
He'd go preach on the weekends at little Baptist churches out in the middle of nowhere, and treated everybody with a lot of love and respect. He led my dad, who was not his son, this is my mom's father, led him to the Lord. And so in a lot of ways, like, I exist because of Young Life. Not even just as a joke, but like for real. I think it's kind of cool. But the other day we were in Orlando. With Young Life every 4 years has a big conference for all their staff people. And there was this old guy named Ted who I had seen, and he was in his mid-80s, and I was riding on the bus with him to the airport, and we were just talking. He's a fundraiser for Young Life, and he's doing something for Young Life camping that's similar to what's going on here, where he's got donors who are willing to give a matching gift to help send kids to camp. And he was telling me all about it. He's 85 years old. He's excited about this as like a 19-year-old would be about winning like the College World Series, which was amazing. And so we get to talking, and he said, well, what's your connection to Young Life? And I said, well, my wife and I are on a committee in Nashville. We play music at camps. And so it goes back to my grandfather was involved. He said, what's your grandfather's name? And I said, Chubby Andrews. And he just stopped and he goes, you're Chubby Andrews' grandson. And they had this deep friendship that was they corresponded via letter and all that kind of stuff. And I say all that to say that Young Life's impact is not just like Ellie was saying, it's not just a good activity for kids. It's not just something to help them get through the day. By God's grace, He's used Young Life to really transform communities and to transform families and to transform really, really broken lives into something beautiful. Because they really try to live out the ministry that Jesus had, which was to go into those places where kids are. And it happens to be high school kids, but it spreads way beyond that. It spreads, into generations of people and communities where people have been impacted by the ministry of Young Life in ways that they can't even really articulate. It just becomes a pillar of the community, and I know that's true here because I've seen it, and I've seen your staff at work. And the heart of it is that the world offers a life that might seem abundant, might seem real and meaningful, but I think all of us are old enough in this room to know, maybe not that little guy right there, but most of us in the room are old enough to know that love that the world offers leaves us feeling pretty devastated once we've let it kind of run its course, and at best frustrated. And what Young Life says is like, hey, I don't have it all together, but I do know that this God of the universe does, and that He put on flesh and came down here. Because my Young Life leader used to always tell me, he said, I'm a messed up guy, but if you want to follow me while I follow Jesus, that's what I'm all about. And I just thought, man, that's so awesome. Somebody saying, hey, I don't have it all together, but I do know where we can go, where we can drink deep at the well of good life. And this is a song that we wrote with a friend of ours with that sentiment, like the love of Christ is the better option. It's the better option than the world offers us. And it's that simple. And we're not, Young Life doesn't offer some concoction that will solve all your problems. It just offers a relationship with the God who loves us. It's called Better Love. We'd love for you to sing the chorus if you know it. And if you don't, you'll probably know it by the second time through it.
So stop me if you've heard this one before. Walking out the door, I'm done. Is this counterfeit love that we've been served? It's like a band-aid for a cancer, and it won't stop. How long can we survive on chocolates and movie lines? Better love, I see. Better love, I see. Better love, I see. Stop telling me that everything is fine. I see straight through the lies that we're all told. This this love we've seen, it's so tired and abused. It's made us all confused, dust for gold. How long can we get by on breakups and sad headlines? Better love, I see. Better love, I see. Better love, I see. Alright, come on. Better love, I see. Better love, I see. Better love, I see. And in the middle of the night, I try to fight the taste of the world gone bitter. Somewhere out in the streets, there's a melody that speaks a hope for something bigger. So don't you try and talk me down this time. Something more to find out there. Alright. Better love, I see.